NSE All Share Index ended its 4-day rally today. It was down about 0.2% today. Andrew Tsaku, an analyst at Investment One Financial Services, joins me now to review the trading day. He joins us, of course, from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Andrew, thank you so much for staying with us today. Of course, a big surprise with the MPC today, but that clearly had no bearing on the markets today because the decision, of course, happened after the markets had closed. So your take, first of all, about the fact that we did see the market come down today.
Yeah, well, the market, like you rightly pointed out, it didn't quite come down significantly, slightly over 20 basis points down, and as a result of profit taking, I think across board, on the bourse. The MPC outcome, obviously, yes, was only at the end of the market, so we're yet to see any impact of that. But even if you look at the substance of the conclusion of that meeting, I think it's a mixed bag depending on what side of the pendulum individual banks are standing at the moment. So for those banks that have predominance of private sector funds, they will probably be worried because that for them certainly is an anchorage in the retention level. But for banks that have more of public funds, government funds essentially, I think for them that's some relief. So it's a question of how much of the mix you have in your basket.
All right, I guess tomorrow we'll find out how investors are reacting to that news, particularly in the banking sector. But of course, staying with the banks, very interesting news with Sky Bank. We're seeing a and I guess this is why we saw the share price rally recently, the PAT up 81% in the first quarter. Of course, that bank also has done a deal to buy Main Street Bank recently. Your take on the level of interest we're seeing in Sky Bank on the back of that result?
The result of Sky Bank, if we must put the record straight, full year numbers were certainly not that exciting. That also was on the heels of the bookings of excess loans, loan book that they had coming from Main Street, which you referred to. That certainly brought down the level of performance of the bank. However, I think having taken quite a number, a good chunk of that off their books, they were certainly prepared with a clean slate to begin the year, and they started on a very good and positive note, having posted the excess of 80% that you're seeing in the bottom line. So that has certainly, impacted on the stock positively. We've seen a trade on bid actually for the entire day today. I do think that there still are great potential in Sky Bank, especially because the cleanup of the backlog of poor loans that they had carried, or they've had to carry in the last financial year, certainly won't be there anymore. So I think given also the fact that they are going to enjoy some widespread expression in terms of the branch network that Main Street hitherto had, all of that certainly will give it a boost going forward.
All right, so very positive numbers from the banking sector for a change. But what's your outlook generally? Now we're seeing the MPC begin to ease monetary policy a little bit, at least effectively that's what they've done today. So your take on the banking sector again, is this looking a little more attractive given the outcome of the MPC today?
First, let me say that the outcome of the MPC was fairly anticipated. Nobody was actually expecting something significantly away from what has happened. But I think what is probably new is their decision to harmonize the rate of retention at 31%. And like I said previously, if you before now had significant deposits coming from the private sector, you probably would still have to be a slightly higher brunt compared to those banks that have predominance of public sector funds, because the public sector rate has come down, from the 70 region to 31, while the private sector has had to move from the 20s to 31. So to that extent, I mean, such banks that have predominance of private sector funds should be prepared to cough out more money to be returned in the coffers of government. But that said, I think that the banking space, looking overall, you'll discover that there's enormous potential, and you can't take it away from the banks. Highly creative, highly ingenious. By now, I do believe that they would have come up with strategies to ensure that going forward, they will be able to weather the tides. And like I said also, the MPC decision coming on the heels of the new government certainly was consistent with what people, most analysts had thought.